This is not just an affordable Fujifilm camera. This is a true pro-level camera, both in image quality and build quality, that a number of photographers have built their careers on. And I'm talking about product photography, I'm talking about fashion photography, I'm talking about travel photography, and I'm talking about event and wedding photography. And I know a number of wedding photographers that to this day still use this camera as their primary camera. And this is a camera that can be found on eBay or Facebook Marketplace for around the $300 mark. Now, before I reveal what the camera is, I just want to tell you a bit about the pro level feature set that this camera has. Because when you listen to all these features as they add up, you will honestly think there's no way that I can get this camera for under $300. To start with, it is an all magnesium alloy body, and it is weather resistant or weather sealed. The camera also comes with 11 Fujifilm simulations in the camera. This is one of the most popular features of these Fuji cameras, which allows you to get great images straight out of camera, straight to JPEG. The other thing this camera has is in-camera processing. This allows you to take a raw photo, then go view that raw photo and choose which film simulation you want to apply to that photo later. You can also push and pull the exposure if you want the photo to be lighter or darker, and you can play with the intensity of the color and the tone curves. You can increase the shadows or highlights. You can add more contrast or decrease contrast. And you can do that all in the camera. You don't have to put it on your phone. You don't have to put it in Photoshop. That is an ability to actually change the finished image and export to JPEG in the Fujifilm camera. And if all that seems too hard for you, you can actually use what is called film simulation bracketing, which is where you preset 3 different Fujifilm simulations that you might want to choose from. Maybe you're out shooting street photography and you think this might look good in black and white. It might look good in a faded sort of look that looks a bit like early color film. And it also might look good in a really punchy high contrast film simulation. You can go into the camera and tell the camera that those are the 3 film simulations that you're interested in. And when you take the photo, the camera will immediately process it 3 different ways. So when you go and look at your photos in the camera, you'll have the same photo processed 3 different ways. You'll have a black and white one, you'll have sort of a faded film looking one, and then you'll have a punchy sort of high saturation contrast one. And then you don't have to do anything. You just pick the film simulation that worked out best for that photo. And with all the film simulations, you have control of your color, your sharpening, and your tone curve. This allows you to pick how punchy those colors are, how sharp and detailed or crisp your photos or images are, and it also allows you to play with your tone curve. So you might want to pull up the shadows and give you that faded sort of film look where you don't get a true black, you get kind of like a gray, or you might want to go into black and white and really compress that where you got really dark shadows and really high contrast or high highlighted areas, which gives you this really high contrast black and white look. So you have all of these capabilities in camera. These are the core features that people love about Fujifilm cameras. And once again, we're getting this in a camera that costs around $300. You're also going to get a 2.36 million dot EVF. Now, this resolution is similar to Fujifilm cameras right now that cost around $1,400 or $1,500. And there's some cameras that cost up to $2,000 that have this same 2.36 million dot resolution EVF. And I find the EVF in this camera actually better than the one in my $1,300 or $1,400 XS20. You're also going to get the complete range of exposure controls on the top of the camera. So you're going to get your ISO dial, you're going to get your shutter speed dial, and you're going to get your exposure compensation right on the top of the camera. This is the same set of features that the current model X-T5 has. You're also going to get a shutter response time or shutter lag, which is in line with some of the best cameras made today at 0.05 of a second, which essentially means that as soon as you push the shutter button to take a picture, it is instant, there's no lag, so you won't miss that shot. This is something that is an issue with some older cameras, but this camera was way ahead of its time as far as the shutter lag goes, and it is probably was one of the best on the market at the time it was released. The other thing you're going to get that I love is a dedicated manual focus assist button on the back of the camera. And what this is going to do for you is when you are using a manual focus lens, you just touch that and it is going to get you whatever manual focus assist function you set in the camera. I like to use the punch in function. So when I press that, it punches the thing in, zooms way in. I'm able to nail focus on the part of the frame that I want to be in focus. And then I release it, it backs out, and I hit my shutter button and take the picture. This is something that you don't get in all cameras, and you're certainly not going to get in any new cameras at anywhere near this price point. The other thing you're going to get is fast and reliable autofocus specifically for photography. Now, when we talk about video, that's a little bit of a different story, but this camera was well ahead of its time as far as its autofocus performance goes, specifically for photography. You're also going to get a small and compact, excellent travel camera, which is similar size to the current model XT5. They've actually been scaling the size of that XT series cameras back, and the XT5 has gotten smaller, bringing it more in line with the size of this camera. So you've got an excellent small travel camera. Now, these cameras happen to be so small that I like to have a little bit more of a grip on them. So I add this base plate, which just gives me a little bit more room for my hand, and it also adds an Arca Swiss plate on the bottom of the actual camera itself. So I will link that in the description down below as well, because if you have big hands, the actual small camera body might not be the best thing for you. But you've got a small, lightweight travel camera, which is similar size to the current model XT5. The other thing that this camera has is an X-Trans sensor. And if you don't know what the X-Trans sensor is, it is a type of sensor that's different than the kind that Sony, Nikon, Canon, anybody else uses. The type of sensor that is in this camera is one of the things that gives Fuji cameras their unique look and punchy and interesting color. Fuji's cheaper entry-level cameras that you can buy right now do not have an X-Trans sensor. So those are cameras that are more expensive, sometimes 2-3 times the price, and you're not getting even a Fuji X-Trans sensor, the thing that really makes Fuji Fuji. And the one drawback I would say about this camera is the video feature in this camera is virtually unusable in my mind. There is no situation where I could imagine using the video in this. It's 1080p, which is not an issue for me, but it's very low quality 1080p. So this is strictly a photography camera, travel photography, street photography, event photography, but it is not a camera that I would really even consider using for video whatsoever. And importantly, this is an X-mount camera, so it is compatible with all the new Fujifilm X-mount lenses, as well as the history of many, many years of X-mount lenses, including a number of very high quality and very inexpensive third-party lenses. And in the second part of this video, I'm going to go over the lens kit that I recommend for this camera. If you're buying this on a budget, these lenses are going to perfectly pair with this camera and really allow you to take photos that are way beyond the price point of what you're paying. So this is an unbelievable feature set for a camera that costs around $300, but what is the camera? This is the original Fujifilm X-T1 released in 2014. And when you combine that camera with one of these extremely inexpensive third-party lenses, you get image quality and results that I really do not think can be beat even at 2 to 3 times the price. And I know there are people out there to this day, myself included, that still use this camera even though we have cameras that cost thousands and thousands of dollars more just because we love the images out of this camera so much. Now, here is the set of lenses, or the lenses that I would consider looking at when we're looking at buying this camera and staying on a budget. The first one I want to talk about is this one. Now, I've got 2 different manufacturers here. I've got some TT Artisan lenses, and I think it's a Brighton Star lens as well. This is the TT Artisan's 35mm f1.4. If you're just going to buy one lens to go with this camera, this is probably the one I would recommend. It's super small, it's great for portraits, it's great for street photography, it's great for walk around, birthday parties, in a city, travel. And this lens costs under $100. Somewhere between $73 and $88 is normally the price I find. And I did find it on sale at one of my suppliers I worked with recently, so I will link that below. Hopefully it's still on sale there. But yeah, this is a lens that I use all the time. Once again, I've got lenses that cost a lot more than this, but every single person that I've ever recommended this lens to has always come back and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot believe how good of a lens that is for the money. The next one is a 50mm f1.2, and this is a fantastic portrait lens for the camera. Now, the first lens was manual focus. The second one is manual focus. I do have a couple autofocus lenses in here as well. I like using autofocus lenses on the XT series of cameras because it just adds to that overall experience, and that punch and assist that I use for manual focus is really good. It works really well. And you actually get quite quick at it, and you, in general, get a better lens for the money if you're shooting if you're shooting manual focus lens. Once again, this is a 50mm f1.2. This is going to get you an incredibly blurry background. It's beautiful image quality. It gives you something that is somewhere between a vintage lens and a modern lens, which works really quite well with the Fujifilm simulations in the Fujifilm X-T1. It is a little bit more limited because 50mm is the equivalent of about 75mm on full frame, so you're quite zoomed in. I would probably only recommend this as a second lens, not a first lens, but it is an excellent lens for the money. And once again, I think this one is just a little over $100. The next one is a 17mm f1.4, and this is a lens which is essentially a budget alternative to the Sigma 16mm f1.4. And once again, this one's a little over $100, might be $130 or something like this. I will link everything below with all the current pricing and everything you need to know there. I've also made a video on this one comparing it to the Sigma 16mm f1.4. And what you'll be surprised to know is there was a point when I was making videos and I was using the Sigma 16mm f1.4, and I actually swapped it out for this 17mm f1.4, and nobody said a thing. Nobody could tell the difference. In real world results, this lens is so close to the results of that Sigma that really it's hardly noticeable unless you're looking for it. This is a good wide angle, both photo and video, walk around, do everything lens. And it's the widest angle lens that I'm going to talk about in this list of lenses. And yeah, it's a beauty for the price particularly. Now, this next one is a 27mm f2.8 lens. This one is an autofocus lens. So you've got an autofocus lens. You've also got an aperture control ring on here, which tells the camera what the aperture is going to be, and it electronically controls the aperture. You've got a focus ring as well. It comes with a little lens hood, and it comes with a tiny little lens cap. It's a 27mm f2.8. This is a fantastic focal length for street photography, walk around video, do just about everything. Once again, this is another lens that gives you an image that looks like something between a vintage lens and a modern lens. And I'm a big fan of this lens, particularly for the size. And once again, this is a lens around $150 or something like that, under $200. All the lenses in this lineup are under $200. The next one is probably my very favorite of the group, but it is the most expensive. It's around $180, $199, something like that. This is a 35mm f0.95 lens. And for the money, it's probably the best lens I've ever tested. And I did do a video on this lens, and I will link that video below as well as the links, the purchase links for the lens. I cannot recommend this lens highly enough. And this is another one that every single person that I've recommended this to has just come back and said, oh, this is just such an amazing lens for the money. Thank you, thank you, thank you for recommending it. And I was one of the first people, I think, to ever test this lens or make a video about it. And yeah, go watch the video I made on this lens. It is honestly an unbelievable lens for the money. And this final one, if you can't handle the manual focus, I've got two 35mm. One is an f1.4 that I've talked about. Another one is the f0.95 that I just talked about. If you say, hey, I cannot handle the manual focus, I really want an autofocus lens, I've got an autofocus lens here that I can't actually tell you the name of when I'm making this video, but it is going to be released any day now. This is a 35mm f1.8 autofocus lens. The image quality is very, very good. You do get a bit of flaring with the lens, but they supply this kind of crazy good lens hood to knock down that flaring. And for the price, is it the best autofocus lens I've ever tested? Maybe. It's pretty good. It'd have to go close. And once again, this is a lens that's going to be under $200, I'm told. Not available at the time of shooting this video, so down in the description down below, I'll put unavailable or pre-release or something like that. But as soon as it's available, I will update that link and put it to the actual purchase link where you can find it and buy it. I can't tell you any more about it, and I can't give you any image samples yet, but subscribe to the channel and I will have a video out about it when it is released. Now, all the Fuji X series of cameras are APS-C or crop sensor cameras. And I think there's a lot of people out there that think, it's full frame or bust. But I've just thrown a video on screen now. These are 10 lenses that I think make APS-C cameras better than full frame cameras.